Also, wir sind jetzt live geschaltet.
Now, we are live online now, and we are connected live to Australia. And I'm really excited and looking forward to our next speaker, presenter. And Christian will introduce him.
Guten Morgen nochmal persönlich an Rob.
Good morning once again, everybody, and good morning, Rob, once more, personally.
Jetzt Rob Last dran aus Australien.
Our next speaker is Rob Last from Australia, Melbourne in Australia, and his topic is communication. Why is early childhood communication so important, and which forms of communication make sense? A few brief words on his background. He was a special needs teacher for the hearing impaired and is a pedagogist in early intervention, and he's also very active in the Australian CHARGE Association and has been working for many, many years with people with a CHARGE syndrome. Sorry for my mishap here. And enjoy. Rob, the floor is yours.
Christian, thank you. It's lovely to see you again, Christian, because we've met at the conferences at Overvessel, and I'm always impressed by you, Christian. You're really confident and capable and very able to be of assistance, and you're doing a great job as a co-host with Claudia. And Claudia, of course, you're doing a great job as well. I have to do some shout-outs to the interpreters. I watched Kim Blake's presentation, and of course that's really a tricky one. And with the sign language interpreters, they were really doing an astonishing job of working out about the guts and the this working and getting it moving through, and an amazing. So well done, sign interpreters, and then of course the same to the spoken interpreters. The German to English interpreters always do an amazing job, and I can never believe they could do this simultaneously. I don't know how their brains work, but they work very differently to mine. I'm sure of that. So it's a great skill that you have, and you do it wonderfully. And it's terrific. It's the same crowd every time we get around to doing this. So it's lovely to build that kind of connection, that relationship. So, again, and doing it on this way, it's a bit like the Eurovision. We like watching Eurovision because it's just nuts. It's crazy. We still don't understand why Australia gets to be in Eurovision. That's just a mystery that the whole world doesn't understand, but that's what happens. And of course, you're going from country to country and they're coming on screen. And so it's a bit like a mini version of Eurovision. There will be no singing though. That's the only thing. And no light show and costumes. Okay, well, my topic is communication. Now, in real estate, one of the things they talk about with real estate is the property. It's about position. So the three main things to do with selling a property is having a great position for the property. For me, it's for working with kids with disabilities and particularly with communication challenges, it's incredibly important to me as well, because without it, you're not going to be able to break open the world to the child, or the world will not be opened to the child. So I see it as a huge, important thing. Everything's important, but I know this one is really important too. So my definition is very simple, a little one. It's the imparting or exchanging of information by speaking, writing, or using some other medium. And the some other medium is the bit that I really want to focus on too, because we all know about speaking, we all know about writing, but there are so many other mediums in which we communicate. So that's the way I'll be focusing on through the presentation. Next. So, as any parent will know who has had a child with CHARGE, in the early months and early years and even beyond, the medical procedures take absolute precedence. It's medical first, and then everything else comes second. So that is understood. However, my strategy is, along with those medical strategies or medical procedures, medical things that are happening, you can then bring in communication. So you're not doing it as a separate thing. It's just being part of what's going on for the child. And hopefully it's going to make the journey a little easier for the child as well. I'm not asking the parents to be skilled in other forms of communication or very competent in another form of communication, but I am hoping that they will embrace the skills they already have and know that that's a really good thing that they're doing. So the communication strategy can begin as soon as you are aware that you're using communication. So prompts, which might be a little bit of a tap, or gestures, which might be, I'm going to pick you up. It could be mime, you're going to have a drink, or we're going to have something to eat, or we're going to give you something to eat in the tummy. Or it can be a cue. It can be a tap to say, looking over here, look over there. So they're all things that you can all do without having to go to a special training program for that to happen. My particular language now is to use multimodal communication. In other words, using lots of other forms of communication. Back in my early days when I was working with kids, we called it total communication. But the signing element in total communication was signed English. And I know in Germany too, Claudia's advised me, you have a similar thing where you are actually signing, have a sign for the sequence of the German language. In Australia, we've now made sure we are using Australian Sign Language, which is the language of the deaf community. And that in Germany, I think you move on to that, which is German Sign Speech, or what is it? It's DGS. And so we're kind of talking the same language. It just may not be the same way it's done. When I was CHARGE syndrome came with being a teacher of the deaf, and then along came the rubella syndrome or the rubella problem, and kids were born who had both visual and hearing impaired. So that brought me into working with kids who were deaf-blind. So that's a long time ago, and without that, I don't think I would have engaged so much with children with CHARGE syndrome, because the kids with CHARGE are really interesting, and they're really social, and they're very able to show that they really want to engage in the world. The rubella kids were very different to that, so they were much more challenging in the way in which we had to work with them. So working with kids with CHARGE has been an absolute joy and very rewarding, and they have taught me so much. So what I'm wanting to go on to and talk about is visual language. Visual language is so we're using our vision to make sense of the world. I don't know any kids with CHARGE who are totally blind. Maybe I've heard of one in America, but I know that they have vision issues, but I know they use their vision extremely well. They work out how to get the best out of their vision. And so the other issue too is audition, or their hearing. So we'll talk about that as well. So I'm looking at listening as well as looking. Okay. One thing I want to mention about audition, to natural amplification, when the kids are really little, or any time, you can just amplify by getting up near the ear, so that you are then, like a hearing aid, you're getting close to their hearing mechanism, not overwhelming them. But I used to sing into the kids' ears. I used to, and hum and just very nurturing, lovely auditory communication, which helps to tune in their auditory mechanism. Any hearing that they might have gets to be stimulated. So just the natural amplification by getting in close to the ear, not shouting, but just giving a lovely, warm, gentle, supportive communication auditorily by speech. Next. So in the hospital setting, where I used to start working with kids. So the kids would be still in hospital, sometimes for 6 to 9 months. So we got going very early by being an educator in the hospital setting to try and bring strategies into that setting for the parents, for the siblings, for the grandparents, for anybody involved, and hopefully the nursing and doctor staff as well. Usually we used to be able to make inroads in that way as well. So in a hospital room, often the lighting is terrible, and we know that coloboma lets too much light in, so it can be overwhelming visually for the kids. So you position the bed so that the window is going to be behind the child, so the window will, or the light from outside will light what you want them to see. You try to bring the bright lights down if that's possible, so it's not too overwhelmingly bright. The person who is involved should then position themselves so that they are going to be in a position so the kid can see the person or see what they have to show the child. You can adjust the lighting, as I mentioned, and you can position the toys so they are going to be within the visual fields of the child. So, and that way you could do that by observing how the kids are seeing it, and that will be. And sometimes they may not seem to be looking at it, but they may be seem to look away from it, but they actually are looking through their peripheral vision. And I'm sure David talked about that yesterday. So again, cues and alerting the child to who is with him, who's coming, who is there. So it might be a cue as to who you are, which might be a ring on your finger, which might be a watch or a bracelet or a necklace or something that's about you that you could just say, oh yes, it's me, it's Rob, and they can get, and that is a consistent thing that they would reach out, feel the watch or the ring each time to say that's another cue as to who this is, because they may not be able to see or work out who you are properly yet. Whenever you reposition a child, you would do a prompt. So if you are saying, I'm going to lift you up, then it would be a little prompt, not just lift up and then you get that startle reaction. It would be lifting up, a little prompt. I'm going to lift you up. We go up, 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 up we come. So very gentle, not difficult to do, but it gives the child a sense of security that something is not going to happen that's going to scare them or be challenging. So that is about anything. It covers for bathing. I use it. It's often a towel to say it's bath time. So rub the towel. So we're going to come up, and then I'm going to take off your top, and whatever it is to give a prompt, a cue as to what is about to happen. And then prompt happens, then the event happens. Also, there's a little thing about processing time. So when you're going to do something, it's good to pause a little so it gives the child time to think about, well, what am I meant to be understanding here? What is this that's going on? So it's not a sudden event. It's about a prompt or a cue, then a pause, and then it happens. Next event, a prompt, a cue, a pause, and then it happens. So it becomes a kind of a routine that the child feels secure within, and again, you're being very communicative about the world that the child is in at that time. So next, that's those sorts of things. Now, I've got some nice photos for you. This is Sean. Sean is very much still in my life, as many of the kids are in my life still, like Jonas and Christian, and you're not a kid, Christian, you're a big adult now. And so this is Sean. So when he was in hospital for 6 months. So I met him when he was just a few months old. And so he's giving a very good direct look at the camera there. This one, the next is okay. No, next is good. Looking, you can see that Sean is looking at the toys. You can see the window is behind him. So the light is lighting what we want him to look at. And then the next is Sean reaching for his dad's nose. So we know that he has seen that and he is reaching, so he wants to grab hold of it. So it gives us a lot of understanding of Sean's vision. of how well he uses his vision and how important his vision is to him. And then the next one of the things I must ask Madeline, can you go back, please, Claudia? That one. Madeline is Sean's mum. And on the side of the crib there, it says, "Don't touch me." I must check what that was all about, because that's an awful thing to have on the side of so I can't read what's underneath. So it might be saying, touch me when you know I'm aware of that you are there. Yeah. So don't do anything meaningless. Do it with purpose and with sensitivity. Then the next picture is Sean. That's Madeline holding him in a sitting position. And again, the toys are there for him to see and to reach for and interact with. All part of the normal daily routine. There's nothing special being put in. It's just introducing things that become part of the day. It's not a special 1 hour lesson that happens, every 3 days. It's just part of the routine. And here's a really good picture. Next, thank you, is Sean seeing himself in the mirror. And the mirror is, again, a good indication that he is seeing. Maybe he doesn't know what he's looking at that time, at that age, but he's certainly curious about what's the images in the mirror. And then just to show you where Sean is now, this is Sean. He was 21 last year. Because of COVID, he couldn't have his birthday, so he had his birthday this year, the birthday party this year. And Madeline reported she was so, and Brian, very proud of him, because he went and thanked everybody for being there. He had a great time. He wanted to be a dance party, so they were up and dancing and having a great, and it was also wear colourful outfits, so everybody was looking somewhat like Eurovision, I think. But anyway, unfortunately, we couldn't be there. But anyway, it was a great party. And Sean is doing very well. He is now doing lots of making of furniture, carpentry. He's made for us a tray with a R and a W, Robin Wayne, on it, which is quite a tricky piece of carpentry to do. He has a mentor who assists him, and we're thinking there's a career path for him in this way. His dad is a builder, so he was surrounded with all this sort of stuff from the word go as well. So this is Sean. Okay, next slide is audition and visual language. So one of the big things that parents face is the time when we get hearing aids, where hearing tests have to happen, when it's how the hearing aids will work, how to keep them on, when to use them. It just goes on and on, that whole managing of the hearing aids. And it's not easy, because if the kid's got has charge ears, that the hearing, the mold doesn't fit easily into that ear. So holding them in, making sure they stay in. The kids often don't like them, so they'll rip them out. And yes, it's a huge journey, and I don't know how you do it, parents, because it's a tough call, and you do it amazingly well. Then during my early years, the cochlear implant came into our life, and the inventor of the cochlear implant is from Melbourne. So we were very aware of this technology very early. In the early days, the person who was being introduced to a cochlear implant, an adult who was deaf, he would have to go into the hospital. They would link him into the implant, into the technology. The actual computer was as big as a room, so he couldn't carry it around with him anymore. So he had to go in for the assessment, the testing, to see how it's going, and then take it all off and go home still deaf. So we now know that the cochlear implant is an astonishing piece of technology, and it does work well, but it doesn't work for everybody. There are kids where it's not okay to put an implant in because their organs are not in the right place. Their cochlea might be malformed to a degree they can't put the implant in. There's so many things have to be taken into consideration for a child with charge or any child to have a cochlear implant. So it's not a given that every kid will be suitable for a cochlear implant. The next one is bone-anchored hearing aids. I don't know whether parents have experienced anything these, but we know that the kids who with charge are really doing well with a bone-anchored hearing aid. So it's really a hearing aid that's attached to an abutment on the skull. And so it's giving them their information through the bone here on the skull into the cochlea. So, and that's giving them really good information. So we know that there is an intact cochlea, and it's working okay, and we're getting that information through to the cochlea via the bone here at the back of the ear. So often it's the stepping stones with hearing aids, and then it's going to be bone-anchored hearing aid. It might be lots of discussion, exploration about cochlear implants. So there's a lot of toing and froing with those specialists for parents and for the kid. And we know that FM systems can be very useful too. Once they're usually going into a preschool situation, then school situation, where the children are getting a direct signal from a microphone on the teacher. They're getting a direct signal to their hearing aids. And then sign language. So sign language for me is something that you begin from the beginning, as I've talked about. It might only be cues, it might only be gestures, it might only be very simple stuff, but at least it's a visual language that's being presented and it's being hopefully understood, and that you as a parent, you as a teacher, are getting good at it and getting used to it and seeing the rewards of what you're doing because the kids are following what you want them to follow. Often we start with keyword signing, so we're only just getting a smattering of formal signs. So it might be drink now, or finish now, or over there now. So that we're not giving them full sentences in sign language. We're just picking out keywords because that's what our skills are up to as adults. Gestures are really important. So mostly in European societies, Australian, American, gesturing is very much part of our culture. We do gesture easily, as you can see with me, gesturing the whole time. Other cultures, often Chinese cultures, are not great at gesture. So that's not they're much more formal, much more controlled, contained. So they don't do gesture easily. So for us, or for you who do gesture easily, that's terrific because it's a great communication form. You can watch somebody across a room and not hear what they're saying, and you can watch their gesturing, and you really kind of get an idea of what they're talking about. The other thing is body language. And that, again, a really important thing, and we don't sort of pay attention to that enough, that our body gives a lot of information as to what's going on. If we're happy, it's kind of like a really up, we're positive, we're feeling good. If we're not so happy, if we're a bit glum, it's more down and glum in the mouth and downward smile. So it's a very communicative thing. So be aware of your own body language and how that can work, especially facial and including facial expression. So that's very easy to know if somebody's in a good mood or not so good mood. We really read facial expression all the time. We go to a counter to buy something, and we know the person who is serving us, whether they're not too happy to do this, or they're having a bad day, or they're not really into it, and where we then act accordingly, thinking, well, either are you okay, or we just go, let's get the job done and over and done with, and we know that there's something not happening well for them. We do use pointing a lot, over here, over there, so we're giving directionality, what we are wanting to focus on. We might use mime. Mime meaning it could be that I want you to stir the drink, and then I want you to hold the cup, and we want you to try and drink it. So we're making a little mime out of the event. And that's, again, if you're good at charades, you'll be good at this, because that's all about miming to get a message through. Real objects are really important too. So if you're talking about a cup, it's a real cup. If you're talking about a real, if it's going to be an injection that happens to the child, it's a real needle. So you're giving the cue. You're about to get the injection here. It's going to go in. It's going to go in there. And then, so for Jonas, that would be a big challenge because he doesn't like injections. But again, it gives them a chance to know what is going to happen. Symbolic objects, they're things that represent a real object. So a symbolic object might be a little tea set cup rather than a big real cup. And so that just is an indicator we're going to have a drink, we're going to drink out of the cup. So it's like a step down from real objects, or step up. Photos are really important. I love using photos of the family members, the house, the bedroom, everything that's surrounding the child, the toys, so that that's their equipment, that's their world. So using photos and turning these photos into books is a really good thing as well. So at that point, you're starting literacy. This is the beginning of turning a page and seeing what's next, and you can add in text to the photo. This is Jonas, this is Mum, this is Dad. So that can be underneath, and that is also introducing the written word into their lives. They won't be able to read it, but it will be the beginning of reading. Drawings are really important too. So just becoming really good at little stick figure drawings to give a sequence of events that might happen. So first you'll have to get up and get out of bed, and then you will have to wash your face, little drawing, and then you will get dressed, and then you will get your school bag, and then we'll go to the car, and then we'll go to the school or to the kindergarten. So you're making almost like a cartoon sequence of drawings, or a comic of drawings. And to add to that, you can also then do a balloon out of the mouth with the text in it. Good morning. So up, good morning. And then the next one might be time to wash your face. Next one, get your school bag. Let's go to the car. So it can be like a comic again with the text in the drawing. Symbolic drawings are things that are not so real. So then Compic and those kinds of communication programs where that you have a pencil drawing, or not a pencil drawing, but a little drawing of what it is. So, for example, the men and women's toilets, that's kind of a symbolic drawing. A circle with a line through it, and dogs, meaning you can't walk your dog in that street. Or, the symbolic drawings are part of the world, and they're very international now, because it's almost like when you go to an airport, anywhere, you're going to be able to read the symbolic pictures about where you are, where to go, what's to happen. And then you hope that will, in time, bring you to reading and writing, a really important skill for kids who have charge. Not all acquired. Even it's very basic reading or writing, but to have some reading and writing skills is a big addition to their world, and especially because often, as if they're able to read well, they will use reading as their recharge time. So when they're having a downtime, I've had a big day, I'm tired, I might just quietly read my book, then that's a terrific way to recharge as well. And I know a lot of kids who are literate, use reading to do that. They love their books enormously, and they choose their books carefully, and they use it as a learning tool as well as a relaxing tool. Okay, next we're coming up to videos. I have 3 videos. Now, hopefully they will work all right. And the videos involve Heiko, which is Jonas's dad, and Jonas. And so we're going to be seeing 3. So we'll see the first one, and then we'll discuss it afterwards. Second one, discuss after. Third, discuss after. The thing with these videos, they're in German. So if you're an English speaker and don't understand German, then we don't want the interpreters to interpret that for you. We want you to try and understand what is going on by watching. So tuning into the visual language. If you're German speakers, it'll be very much easier for you. All right? So let's try and run number 1. It's when Jonas was 2 years and 5 months old.
Eins, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jawohl, jetzt du. 1, 2, 3, 4 und 5. Hey, prima. Machen wir es gleich nochmal. Machen wir es gleich nochmal. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, du warst zu schnell. Und jetzt der Jonas. Jetzt du. 1, 2, 3, 4 und 5. Prima. Bravo. Ja. So schön hinsetzen. Machen wir es nochmal. Ja. Wollen wir nochmal das Lied singen? Hallo? Wollen wir nochmal das Lied singen? Ja. Okay, pass auf, wir fangen nochmal an. Es war eine Mama, die hatte 4 Kinder. Den Frühling, den Sommer, den Herbst und den Winter. Der Frühling bringt Blumen, der Sommer den Klee. Der Herbst bringt Blumen, der Winter den Schnee. Genau so geht's. Ja? Wollen wir auch nochmal das mit dem Gockelhahn singen? Ja, mit dem Gockelhahn. Na, das, pass auf. Aber mach's schön mit. Willst du mitsingen? Das machen wir später nochmal. Jetzt machen wir erstmal den Gockelhahn. Okay? Pass auf. Auf der grünen Wiese steht ein Gockelhahn. Er so gern gefahren mit der Eisenbahn. Eisenbahn hält an, Gockelhahn steigt ein, fährt zur Tante Susi in die Stadt hinein. Hallo Tante Susi, sagt der Gockelhahn. Ich bin heute gefahren mit der Eisenbahn. Tante Susi spricht, nein, 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 das glaube ich nicht. So einen dummen Gockelhahn nimmt die Bahn nicht mit. Immer.
So, Heiko, I know you'll get so embarrassed because you're a superstar, and I can see you're getting red from here from being embarrassed by my praising you. I've used these videos all over the world, and they just work marvelously. So I'm very grateful that you allow me to use them. And Jonas, thank you as well. And Claudia, thank you as well, because they are perfect examples of what I want to convey about play and about communication and visual language. So Heiko has all the things in place. He's gaining Jonas's attention. He makes it a participatory game appropriate to Jonas's age. So your turn, my turn is happening, which is what communication is. When we communicate, it's your turn, I'll listen, my turn to speak, you listen. He prompts turn-taking, and he rewards any imitation. And Jonas is doing a great imitation of his dad. What I really like too is Heiko pauses. When Jonas gets to get interested in the camera, he looks away from that, so Jonas is happy. Heiko is happy to pause while that happens, and then re-engages Jonas when he comes back to play the game. He rewards with bravo and clap, 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 and smiles and laughing and making it a really pleasurable event. He allows the looking away, doesn't try to bring Jonas back, and he uses speech, gesture, signs, and lots more as well. So everybody's capable of doing that. They do that anyway when they play with their kids. So this is not asking anything extra special than just to be aware that when you're doing it, you're doing really good communication stuff. Really important. Okay, next video. Jonas is 2 years, 6 months in this one.
Hast du Mama mitgekriegt? Was macht denn jetzt? Bist du abgelenkt, ja? Bist du abgelenkt, weil die Mama die Kamera angemacht hat, ja? Wollen wir das Bild wieder wegstellen? Ja? So, wir tun es wieder hier hoch, das Bild. Von Mama und Papa. her. Da tun wir es hin, das Bild, okay? Siehst du es noch? Ja. Da ist das Bild. Noch da oben. Was ist denn da oben? Jetzt müssen wir mal zeigen. Das da. Hey. Ist das da oben das Licht? Das Bild, das willst du haben. Ja? Okay, pass auf, ich hol's nochmal. Schau her. Da ist es wieder. Was siehst du auf dem Bild? Eine Nase. Hey, die Mama siehst du auch. Und ein Auge. Aha. Und nun? Soll ich wieder hinstellen? Auf der Papa, genau. Der Papa stellt es wieder hier hoch. Schau her. Siehst du es noch? Da steht es wieder. Was denn? Willst du es schon wieder haben? Du hast doch gerade gesagt, du sollst hochstellen. Soll ich es nochmal holen? Soll ich es nochmal dem Jonas zeigen? Ja? Okay, pass auf. Holen wir es nochmal her. Das ist ein schönes Bild. Ja? Ganz gut. Der Papa sieht es auch. Der Papa und die Mama. Wer ist noch auf dem Bild? Die Mama, genau.
So in video 2, how fabulous is that? It's just wonderful. I've seen these videos so often and I still just completely get intoxicated by them. They're just fantastic. Anyway, Jonas is being well supported on Heiko's body, on Dad's body, which is a really important thing. So he's fully supported. He doesn't have to worry about his own body to then engage in this game and this communication. So it's a really lovely positioning. And Heiko's really comfortable too. So he's, lounging on the couch, having a nice time. What I love is how Heiko follows Jonas's interests, so that Jonas indicates that he wants something and he wants it again and again, and that it gets responded to appropriately. Beautiful taking turn, beautiful reading of Jonas's communication. Heiko allows time for Jonas to process information. He responds to Jonas' request for a repeat. And really importantly, Heiko is animated, interesting, and rewarding in his facial expressions and in his demeanor. So it makes it a very pleasurable communication experience for all. A lovely, lovely video. Next, and we've got one more. Now, Jonas is 5 years, 5 months, so it's a different stage of development now.
Schau mal. Und jetzt, schau mich mal an. Jetzt darfst du eine Karte umdrehen. Eine. Mach mal. Dreh mal eine Karte um. Okay, wer ist das? Leg sie wieder hin. Das ist die Dora. Und jetzt musst du noch eine zweite Dora finden. Wo ist die andere Dora? Da, denkst du? Oh, und wer ist das? Leg's hin. Ein Boots. Passt nicht zusammen, ne? Ja. Schau, eine Dora. Und? Okay, drehen wir sie wieder um. Du auch eine? Ja. Wieder umdrehen. Und jetzt ist der Papa dran. Ja. Okay, hier war die Dora. Ja. Da war der Boots. Ja. Okay, jetzt der Papa dran. Einen Swiper. Oh, jetzt haben wir sie alle einmal gehabt. Super. Und Backpack. Passt auch nicht. Ja. Weißt du noch? Dora. Boots. Swiper. Backpack. Ist der Jonas wieder dran. Sehr clever. Hätte ich auch gemacht. Leg hin. Ich wäre verrückt. Der Jonas hat's gefunden. Ja. Ja, super. Ja, dann darfst du die hierher legen und dann darfst du auch nochmal. Du hast ja ein paar gefunden. Jetzt darf der Jonas noch einmal. Dora. Eine Dora. Wo ist die andere Dora? Dora. Das gibt's doch nicht. Du hast schon wieder gefunden. Ja. Ist ja klasse. Wow. Okay, da darfst du nochmal. Hast du schon wieder ein paar. Ja. Gut, schau mich mal an. Jetzt darfst du noch einmal. Darfst du noch einmal. Ja. Boots. Und wo ist jetzt wohl der andere Boots? Der soll es sein. Zumindest ist es die nicht. Da oder da? Ja. Das gibt's doch nicht. Du hast ihn gefunden. Ja. Ah. Da war sich sicher, dass dies nicht ist. Mhm. Und nun? Backpack. Ja. Und wo ist der andere Backpack? Ja, klasse. Prima. Toll. Du hast sie alle und ich hab nix. Schau mal, wie viele hast du gefunden? Zähl mal bitte.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Und wie viel hat der Papa?
Ja.
Ich hab gar nichts. Du hast alle alleine gefunden.
Ja.
Super.
Ja.
Das war ja mal klasse.
So, again, another wonderful video. And that was quite different from the others because of the age of Jonas. He's 5 plus. So it can engage in an adult-directed play game rather than being the child leading. This time the adult's leading more. So that's one of the stages of play. What I like too is Heiko takes time and to ensure that Jonas knows how to play the game, how to understand the game, what's involved, and so it gives lots of time for Jonas to process that information and to make sense of the game. He revises each step to make sure Jonas understands and then to ensure success so that it is a rewarding experience to succeed. And he allows Jonas to succeed without necessarily adult intervention. So it's not too many prompts coming in. He's letting Jonas take his time to work out the solution and to think about what has to be done, which Jonas does beautifully. And the reward is really Jonas's success. And also it was lovely to see the little bit of empathy when he realizes that Dad didn't get any right. So that's another kind of stepping stone in our growing up, that we need to understand the feelings of others. And so that was a nice little moment in Jonas as well. So in the next slide, thank you, Claudia. So Heiko uses all these things in his play with Jonas. He uses speech. He used sign language, mama and papa, in the second one. He uses fabulous facial expression, body language that gives indications about certain things. He uses gesture, mime, touch cues with the cards, symbolic objects. He uses photos, the photos of mum and dad, and he uses drawings and singing. So it was some lovely singing with the roostery song, whatever that song is. So well done, Heiko. So now what we're going to talk about is about learning sign language. And I know with everything else going on in your life, families, and, learning a sign language, wow, can we do that? Is it going to be something we can manage? So a lot of families I know have managed that. If we were at a conference at Oberwessel, you would see lots of parents who are signing fluently with their kids. If I'm in the Australian conference, same thing. If I'm at the American conference, lots of signing. Not all. There are people using cochlear implant or hearing aids or Baha, so they're using speech as well. But so many who have acquired sign language also have acquired speech. And for us here in Australia, we're noticing how some have transitioned from fluent sign language into fluent spoken English. And Sean, who you saw earlier in the photos, and then as an adult, he started out with sign language, and then gradually, as he got better audition equipment, listening equipment, he has transitioned into using speech. The thing with important with Sean is his speech is difficult sometimes to understand because he has a very significant facial palsy. So for a while, it was a good backup tool for him when he couldn't be understood, that he would sign what was being said. But mostly now, with speech therapy, with his desire to speak properly, and with really working hard at it himself, he is more and more able to be understood. His speech is more and more able to be understood. And he's actually choosing, he wants to talk rather than use sign language. It's a choice he's making. So he's had a choice. You know, something wasn't imposed upon him. He got bilingual, and he's now choosing to operate as in speech. So when you're learning, it's great if you can find somebody who is fluent in sign language, a teacher or somebody who is around you who knows sign language, so you can use their tutorial skills to help you. There are signing dictionaries, there are signing DVDs, there's signing, on the internet, so you can start to access that information as well. There are members of the deaf community, if they are available to you. You can find those through deaf organisations, and they may be able to be happy to assist you in the learning of sign language. The good thing about using somebody who is deaf is maybe they don't speak. So it puts you into the position of having to use visual language to be with that person. A bit challenging, not a incredibly comfortable thing to do initially, but it certainly can push things along in using sign language. I think if you can seek out coders are children of deaf adults. The signing interpreters here now, they may be children of deaf adults, I don't know, but they have speech and sign language, so they're using fluent German Sign Language. So I'm presuming they have a background of growing up with sign language around them. You can attend classes, you can attend courses, they're available everywhere, and that's another way of accessing the skills of sign language. Sometimes to attend an event where the deaf community are having an event where you're put into the situation of having to do your best with visual language, sign language, gesture, whatever you use, because the predominant communication system would be sign language, and you will be then in a position that often deaf people are in when they're in a hearing situation. They're in the minority as a deaf person, and everybody around them can speak. Flip them around, they're signing, and you're in a position of being in the minority. Very good learning experience, challenging, but learning. You might have a neighbour or a friend who is fluent in sign language. Ask around, you never know. One of the things I loved doing was having switching off voice times. So a family might choose to have Wednesday night when they're going to prepare a meal, they're going to eat together, but there's going to be no talking. Everything has to be done through visual means to get the end result. I used to use this in preschools when I was working with kids as a support worker in the preschool, and I would make one of the tables where the kids do their work. So there's usually a range of tables with activities. One of those tables would be no talking table. So the kids who at that table would have to use visual language to communicate to each other, and it was also wonderful for the kid who was deaf, who was at that table as well. So the voice-off time in varying situations is a really good strategy and great fun. I mean, it's you can have a good laugh, and and if you have to cheat to say, look, what I was trying to say was, you can do that, but try not to. You can get by. In Australia, we have an app which is in Australia, Auslan is is the language of the deaf community, Australian Sign Language, and there's an app which we have on our phone or on, and you can look up signs and sentences, and so you can get a whole lot of information at your fingertips from the app. I don't know whether that's available in German. So up to take-home messages. Next slide. So take-home messages are, and I haven't really mentioned this yet, the communication, the language, the system must be meaningful to the child. It must make sense. And you will know if it's not making sense because they'll just switch off, they won't be with you. If it's making sense, they will be engaged and involved. So you have to pitch it to the child. So a child with, or an adult with high support needs who has very minimal communication, you would pitch it accordingly so that you're using a system that is going to make sense to that individual. And then all the way up or up on the scale where you are able to use complicated communications, complicated speech, complicated sign language. So that's the spectrum from very simple, basic through to sophisticated communication. You need to be multimodal. I think I'm pushing multimodal with you. So be aware of the fact that to do a range of things is really important to get your message through. So multimodal communication is preferred. You need to be alert to all the communication attempts and opportunities. So Heiko was very alert to Jonas's attempts and he responded to them appropriately. So it's really being very tuned in to, oh, this is communication. This isn't about having some, just a out of the blue. What is happening here is something I need to try and understand. And it can be from having a pain in the tummy, or it can be a headache, or it can be feeling unhappy, or it can be wanting your attention. Whatever it may be, you need to be tuned in to those communication attempts. In the first two videos, Heiko followed the child. That's really important too. Early years, following the interests of the child will get you huge results. If you want to take control of the kid in the early years, you're going to have a battle. So it really is noticing what they're interested in and then playing along with those interests. I use the word immersion. Now, immersion means, for me, being surrounded in a language. So if you want to be surrounded, like you would if you were attending the deaf community and it was sign language anywhere, you would be immersed in sign language. Where in our hearing world, we're immersed in the language of our country. So in Germany, you are immersed in German, therefore you acquire German. In Australia, we were immersed in English and we acquired English. So it's no different to sign language. You need to have immersion. It needs to be around you. It's not for 1 hour lesson once a week. It's about being in the environment all the time so that this is the language that is going to make sense to the kid, to them. I remember reading the book by Oliver Sacks called Seeing Voices, and that's all about the deaf community at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. And in one chapter, he talks about a person who was deaf who is grieving about the fact that when, as a teenager, his family only would spend about 1 hour a day to try and communicate in the system that was best for him, sign language. And yet for the rest of the day, they were communicating in the system they all knew very well and were skilled at. And it was like, this is not a fair situation. You're not really using a system that makes any sense to me, that is useful for me. So it's a hard ask for hearing world to do that, but it's also important for us to understand what is happening to the person who is not getting the communication system that they need. So the last one is rewards increase the chances of positive outcome. So to make sure that people are succeeding, you need to make sure they do succeed and then they have positive outcomes It works for them. It's a much more pleasurable experience. And going back over the years of was interesting with the kids yesterday, kids, adults, Carolyn and Jonas, they remember the years that were not rewarding at school when it was a tough call, when the school was not really catering to their needs. It wasn't a happy time. And so that really sits in them. And me too. I remember when I didn't have a good, happy year at school as well. So, it's important to make it a rewarding experience all the time. Now, we have some terrific resources available. One of the things that we developed in Australia were these books. So that's the YMI, that's the bottom one there, the YMME. This is German, and this is English. So what Claudia did, she said, can we get a German version of your YMIB book? And we said, sure, you can. The more, the better. We have this because it was prompted by a teenager in New Zealand who said in the library of their school, there is nothing about me. There's no literature that talks about me, doesn't talk about charge. So that was our motivation to do a book. So it's a story that brings up about a child with charge and friendships, but on the way through, all the things about charge are explained. So it's great for teachers, it's great for family members, it's great for students. It's a good book. So it's available through Claudia for the German speakers, and for us it's available through our website, the Australian website, and just Google search for Australasian Charge Syndrome .org.au. Then the most recent book that we've developed is this one. Hey, I'm reached adulthood. Now what? So what we found was there was not much written about, and Claudia's got the German one. I've got the English one. There was nothing written about adults, and how did they get to there, and what was their journey? So we've gathered stories from people all over the world who are now adults. So we have people from Australia, from Austria, from Germany, from America, from Canada, from all over. And so it's their story about how they got from there to here, all age ranges as well. I think for parents, there's lots of great tips, because they won't all apply to your child, but there are things that will apply, and you think, oh, that's a good idea. That's how we might get to do the next thing that we need to do, which might be independent living, which might be employment, which might be a course at a university, a college, whatever it might be. You may, in fact, get some information. It's not all about high achievers either. There are people in this book who are in fully supported situations through to one person who is doing a second degree at university. So again, the full spectrum of ability and ability range. Then there are two more resources. One that was developed by Andrea Vanka, and it's her book called You Taught Me. And so that's a dedication to the people in those children's lives, like their teachers and so forth. So that's another good resource for you. And the Charge online course, which was mentioned earlier. So what we did in Australia, we knew that some of us were getting old, so we needed to harness their knowledge before we lose that opportunity. So we did that by using inviting these lovely people to participate in our online course. And so they are there doing their thing. Now, it's about 12 hours to complete the course, but you can register, then you can skip to the topics that may be of most interest to you. So it's terrific for people who are working with your children. So that's another great awareness raising about the complexities and the challenges and how to get there. So you have the key players from all over the world, David and Kim and Tim and Meg, and anyway, they're all there doing their thing, and it's a great resource. And what's happening now is Claudia, in all her wisdom and ability, she's having it translated into German, and it will also have a sign language interpretation as well. So you will be getting the course a bit like what we're experiencing now. It will be a way of getting that information. So again, a worldwide resource available to you. And anybody involved, anybody interested, anybody, teachers, grandma, Auntie Mary, whoever, if they're interested, they can go and have a look. You just have to register and then you can get onto the course. So you register through our website. I think that's about it, Claudia. How did we go? Probably question time, if you have questions.